Namaste. Today I'm going to be preparing for you a recipe for kimchi. Now, as you know, kimchi is very popular for good reason. It has many health benefits and promotes wellness within the whole body and the soul. So today we're actually going to be substituting kale for the standard cabbage, which you usually find in kimchi. Now cabbage, it can sometimes be problematic. So like I say, we're going to substitute kale, and I'm also going to add some quinoa into there. So it's something I like to call kimchi with a conscience. Namaste. Alright, welcome to my kitchen. So I'm first of all just going to give a brief overview of the individual components that are going into my kale kimchi recipe. Okay, of course, starting out with the kale here, I've got one head of organic kale. Now I usually do like a larger batch. I probably use about 3 or 4 of these, but just for ease of demonstration, I'm just going to do a small batch today. So if you do decide to do a larger batch, just make sure you increase the other components in the same ratio, alright? So next we've got some sugar for the sauce, some salt. Initially we're going to salt the kale, helps draw out the moisture, and also aids in the preservation of the final product. We've got some Korean coarse chili flakes there, some Korean shrimp sauce. Feel free to substitute like maybe an organic vegan shrimp sauce if you prefer not to ingest these creatures. We've got an onion, some garlic. I've got about half an ounce of quinoa there, and finally some shrimp sauce. Again, feel free to substitute like a vegan variety if you prefer. Alright, so that's it for the components for my recipe. Let's start off with preparing the kale. Alright, so the first step is to prepare our kale. So first I'm going to cut it into smaller bite-sized pieces and then salt it and let it sit for a few hours, okay? So first of all, you've just got to remove kind of this woody stem out of the center. Just kind of cut around it like that. Alright, a little bit is alright, so just cut off the end there. Make sure you get all of the leaves off. You don't want to waste them. Then just cut it into smaller, bite-sized pieces. I've prepared my kale here, chopped it into bite-sized pieces. So now we're just going to layer it with some salt to start the wilting process. So just take a few leaves here, sprinkle a little bit of salt on there, similar to the same as the process you would do for a cabbage kimchi. Just a little bit in a layer, sprinkle some salt. It's okay if your bowl seems like it's going to be overflowing. This will wilt down significantly after an hour or two. Okay, so once you've got that all layered in your bowl with the salt, just go ahead, stick a plate on there, and then stick something heavy, such as a can or another bowl with maybe some water or beans or something in there, just to weight it down, help the salt penetrate the kale. Alright, so we'll come back in a few hours and see how this is. In the meantime, we'll prepare our other ingredients. Okay, so to cook the quinoa is very simple. I've got about 1/4 cup of quinoa in there. So I'm just going to add about 3/4 cup of water. And then I'm going to turn on the heat, bring that to a boil, put the lid on, and simmer it for about 15 minutes or so till it's tender. Okay, so my quinoa is now cooked, so let's go ahead and make the sauce. Now first of all, we've got about half a teaspoon of sugar, our chili flakes, and I'll put in just about 1/2 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of the shrimp sauce. Just a couple of dashes of the fish sauce, maybe about a teaspoon total. And then I've just blended some, about 1/4 of an onion and about 4 cloves of garlic together. So I'll put that in. Alright, so that will be our sauce. Now we just gotta wait for the kimchi to finish wilting with the salt. Alright, so our kale here has wilted sufficiently. I actually had this sitting for about 24 hours actually. This particular bunch of kale was being rather obstinate. It did not soften in the expected time frame, so keep that in mind. You may be looking at a resting period with the salt for about 24 hours, more or less. Alright, so I've got this, I've got my sauce, so we can put the two components together, place it into a mason jar, and all you have to do after that, put on the lid, leave it out for about 24 to 48 hours to start fermentation, then put it back into the fridge to keep. Alright, so let's go ahead. Alright, so our kale there, and then our sauce that we prepared yesterday. Just scrape that all in there. Alright, so if you can see, I've got my sauce, my beautiful sauce, and the kale in there. So let's go in. Best tool for the job, your hands. Now this is actually very therapeutic. It really helps me find my center. So keeping that in mind, this is not just a comestible that's great for your body and soul, but the actual process is actually healthful as well. So just really massage this, caress it lovingly, tenderly. incorporate all that sauce into the little nooks and crannies and everything in the kale. And have it evenly dispersed. Okay, beautiful. That looks great. So now we just gotta put it into our jar. So it can get a little messy, but don't worry about it. Humans have lived with mess for millennia, millions of years really. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Alright, and just for the last bit of sauce, we're just going to use my spatula. So just put that last little bit on top. Okay, so I've got all of my kimchi in there. I just like to use this muddler, which is often used for alcoholic beverages. You choose to medicate yourself in that fashion. But it also proves as quite a convenient tool to utilize to press this kimchi down. Now you don't want to have too many air bubbles in there, that can lead to spoilage. Like I said earlier, I usually do a larger batch, so it's best to have the kimchi come up maybe an inch from the top of your jar. It's good to limit the amount of oxygen in there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Alright, so just put on the lid, then have it cracked a little bit, just allow the gases to escape as it ferments. Leave this out for about 24 to 48 hours, as I said earlier, and then it's into the fridge for long-term storage.